All right. Well, I am super excited today to get to talk to Miss Emily Gibbons. She teaches second grade. I have known Emily for a long time. She was a student teacher on my team with a different teacher many moons ago, not too long ago. It wasn't too
No.
long ago. So we're
Yeah,
not old. Maybe
just a
veteran, but
little
not
bit double digits,
just a
not a
little bit.
lot of double digits.
I'm a lot of double digits. So but I've known Emily a long time, and I'm excited to get to talk to her today about the not just the science of reading or teaching, but the art. Like there's so much more to teaching than just the science. And I know right now the buzzword, we keep hearing it everywhere, the science of reading. And now the science of teaching has been coming up. But what does that mean? And then okay, well, if there is a science, is there an art? And I know this is something we have talked a lot about in our ULI cohorts. We did it back in the first cohort. You guys were doing it in the third cohort.
Hmm.
It's been a big topic of conversation for now 3-4 years. So I'm just curious to learn more about that. But first, I always like to ask, what is going well in education, or what are you enjoying about education right now?
Okay, so many things. But first, let me say thank you for inviting me on and for this platform because this topic is really near and dear to my heart. And I'm really excited to talk about it. I think more teachers should be talking about it. Um, there's a lot of room for artfulness in our profession. So I'm excited
Mhm.
for this conversation. Okay, but what's going well in teaching right now? Um, I love all of the not just opportunity, but need for innovation that's going on. This is a very creative profession, and our students are coming to us with skills from outside of school that no kids have ever had before.
Mhm.
Um, I like to be able to find ways to tap into that. I love how we can really shift how how education has looked before to match more of today. There's just so many opportunities to innovate and to still, give our students everything they need and for them to learn, but in a way that matches our century, and where
Yeah.
we are in time. And also, I think in addition to that, I really love the opportunity to talk about like social emotional learning.
Mhm.
Okay, because we're all humans and this is a very human profession. We work with children. I mean, we work with children every day, and these kids have all different backgrounds. They have big feelings. So do we.
Mhm.
I like that. uh, I know I'm lucky to be in a place where I have the freedom to have these kinds of conversations, and the term SEL isn't shunned where I am from. I know that not everyone has that same blessing, but I like that we have opportunities to be human with our students and to innovate. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I think having always been kind of myself intrigued about the new things that kids can be doing in our classrooms, the new things we can be bringing to our classrooms. That was something long ago when I worked in a different school district that I got to be a part of that when computers, and I'm not like, I'm all about limiting screen time. There's a time and place for it. Creativity, innovation, and technology, I think, are all three very different things, but often get lumped into something together. But for me, that using technology to enhance what we're teaching, or having kids bring in something they're learning out in their space,
Mhm.
I think that is really cool. And I love to be a part of that because our kids right now have so much at their fingertips that we did not have.
Right.
They come in with a lot of knowledge and figuring out how to navigate that knowledge and how to use that knowledge. And they come in with different ways of learning, styles of learning.
Mhm.
And it's fun to see them create
Mhm.
something that I think we don't always get to do, or we didn't for a long time in school. And now it's kind of making a little comeback. I do creative things in my classroom. And there are a lot of ways to engage in creativity, but also they're learning.
Mhm.
And not because not every child learns the same. We are not cookie cutters. Like you said, we're human. And so seeing what they bring to the table and how we as teachers can help that flourish
Mhm.
is a pretty cool opportunity. Um, I was so to be like very transparent about, Emily had shared an article on Facebook, which is what sparked my like, oh yeah, we've had a lot of these conversations. Tim Shanahan had written The Science of Reading versus the Art of Teaching Reading. And it also navigated into if there's an art of science, there's an art of teaching. Or not, if there's a science to teaching, there is an art to teaching, not just reading. So we read that article. I read that article. He quoted Chase Young, Tim Rosinski, and David Page in their book. They have this book, Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading. But what that looks like in our classroom and why this is so important, because I was reading this article and the very first thing I underlined was science may, and I keep looking, I have my article here. Science may contribute, but it's never sufficient. Art must have a place. Science tells us the what. The art gives us the how. And I think people forget that. I think researchers often forget that. Our administration sometimes forgets that. I think teachers forget that. So I'm always curious what teachers who are passionate about this, what they have to say. So I'll let you, if there's something you'd like to kind of jump right into.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, the article, I was already kind of, the article came at a time after I had gone to our ULI experience, and you might hear my dogs barking in the background because they are very passionate about this topic. So I was already, those wheels were already turning, and I already had a lot of thoughts and feelings about this. And then that article came out and I was like, I have to share this. And like, interestingly enough, my school, we just had a professional development meeting this past week about this very topic. So like, I think that pendulum swings all the time in education, and it swung all the way over to SOR, science of reading. And I think it gets really muddy and people get kind of consumed by it a little bit. And, science of reading is not a teaching style. It isn't, it is just knowing what we need to teach kids, like you said.
Yeah. Body of research. Yeah.
It's a body of research. That is when you think about our daily jobs in our classroom, that is a small part. Yes, we need to know that.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, the more I just feel like the more I'm figuring out this profession, it aligns with art and like theater. And it's the more I realize it's a creative profession. I think about, every day I walk into my classroom and I have to twist and turn and flex and bend and get creative and problem solve and figure out how I'm going to fit this round peg into this square hole or vice versa, and how I'm going to do this in that much time, and et cetera, et cetera. I am, and all teachers are, thinking on our feet and creative geniuses every single day. Yeah. We are the most creative people on the planet, right?
It is amazing.
We are true artists.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep.
Good teaching, good instruction, in my opinion, is art. It is art. There's a quote by Gail Godwin. She's an author. And I read this when I early on in my teaching career. And I was like, it hit me because before I decided to pursue this career, when I was younger, I was just sure I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to do improv. I wanted to do comedy. I wanted to do theater. And then life happened, things turned, shifted, and I decided to become a teacher. And over time, I'm like, no, I'm still doing that. I am an actress. Yeah. I am a comedian. I am improv. Yeah. I am improvising every day. I actually got to dig into my theater roots every single day.
Yep.
So her quote, Gail Godwin's quote, is, good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 good theater.
I love that.
I read that early in my profession, and it made me realize I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And so I think about that 1/4 preparation. Yes, we have to be ready for our day. We have to have a plan. We have to know SOR, right? We have to know what that means.
Yep.
And the other 3/4 is all us
Yeah.
as artists, right?
Yep.
We have to be ready to create and
We have to bring it to life is what I like to say. We have to bring
yes,
it to life. We have to
bring it
bring,
to life.
yeah, when I talked with another teacher, it's not just about reading a page number. Anybody can come in and read a curricular page number and give the information. Teachers bring that page and that material to life. We bring a flair to it. I always say, and this is probably, I don't know. I always say this. It's like turning on tour guide Barbie. I'm ready. I think of that Toy Story. I think of that Toy Story Barbie, and she's like, "Are we done now? Can I stop smiling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. Goodbye." Like, you turn on that. It is an actress. My educational icon is Rita Pearson, and that every child needs a champion. And she says in there, educators are great actors. She says, we're actors and actresses. We perform every day. And it's not because we're doing like, we don't do it just, I mean, I think teachers do it because we love our students. We love our job. We want to make this information that we're giving our students or helping them process engaging. We also want to fit to the student. And when you're at school for 7 hours, that you got to bring a little flair because
Yeah.
things can get boring. We talk about that in fun. We talk about phonics all the time. So the phonics program we use, it can get boring. We have to bring some flair to it.
Well,
So
and what you just said is so important. We have to bring the flair to it. I hear a lot of times when we, are working with box programs or curriculums and things like the students don't like it, it's boring. The students don't like it, it's boring. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Because we do have boundaries, we do have guidelines, we do have things we have to do in our profession, but there's a lot of space in between there for us to work with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I hear that, I think, okay, well, how do you make it interesting? How do you what are we bringing to the table to make this something that kids are excited about and want to learn about? I mean, we don't, like you said, we don't have to just come in and read what's on a page. We can bring our art and our creativity to this. I really think that we went to a conference. I think it was a conference I went with you in Houston, maybe a long time ago.
Yeah.
And there was a breakout session that was improv for teachers. And of course I was like, sweet. And then I went, and it was all about not just how you can use it in the classroom, but also in professional development. Yeah. And as a younger teacher, I was like, this is fun for right now, but how would this fit? Where would this fit? And the more I think about that, I'm like, we need more of that. Practice thinking on your feet, practice thinking outside the box. Yeah. The other thing that I hear a lot of teachers talk about is, and same, I feel it, I understand, is kids don't know how to struggle. We have, issue right now where kids don't want to do anything that's hard. Things that are a little bit of effort, they shut down. Yes. And what are we modeling for them?
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to put blame on anyone, but I think this is a time where we need to shift what we're thinking, how we're thinking, and what we're doing. If kids don't know how to struggle, do we? Yeah. Do we know how to struggle? What are we modeling for them? Yeah. Are we willing to get outside of our little box, mess up and make mistakes to learn something new? Yeah. Are we willing to, let go of everything we've always done and tackle something that's completely new and scary for us? Yeah. I think we get into these cycles where we just get so comfortable, and that slowly builds our little box, and we want kids to fit into this little box. And when they don't, we're like, well, they don't want to struggle anymore. It's like, no, it's time to make a different box or break it down or let go of the box. Either expand it or get rid of it altogether. Because if we're not willing to stretch and mess up and make mistakes, kids aren't going to either. Right. What are we modeling for them?
And I think it's okay in that same breath that kids see that. That's something I talk to with my student teachers, my mentees. I've shared it in professional learning when I've led different professional learning opportunities. We need to show our vulnerability and mistakes and frustrations we might have, in our learning process. So kids get to see that. And that's still bringing in, again, the art of teaching. We are teaching children with a human capacity. Like I can teach the science of things, but the art brings in your feelings. It brings in how, if we're passionate about something. And I think that when I think about the people who think, because I'm one, I very much so, I say phonics is boring. It is boring. But kids can't know that. They can't know that I think it's boring. They've got to know that I think it's fun. We're going to OI and OY. They're my favorite song. They're my favorite. Like, I don't have that hanging anywhere. I don't have a OI. That's my favorite. Yep. That's not tattooed on me. But they don't need to know that. They need to think, I think this is the most spectacular thing in the world. Yeah. And they'll buy in. But they also need to see when I make a mistake. And I talk to them about that. Like we talk about when I'm frustrated with something, I process that with them. When and in kid-friendly language, we have a process. We follow an SEL program and they have a thing that we can model. And I process that with them when I make a mistake on the board with a math problem. Like, oh, Mrs. Munt needs to go and I need to think about that again. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to think because I must not have really understood something. Yeah. That stuff's not on the page number. That's not in the book. Yes. That's not in our well, it wasn't in my college classes. That is not something I think, honestly, not all teachers maybe come in with. I don't think it's hard to learn necessarily. I think there are teachers who like, I was born to be a teacher. I see that every single day. Yeah. But there are teachers, I think, if they can be open to something new. There are things in our education. There are things that we learned as teachers. There are things in my 22 years that I think are solid, good practices and will continue using. Yeah. And they're great because we teach little children. But as we learn about child development, as we learn about new strategies, new science that comes out, as we learn about each of our little students, our little friends in our room, well, how does that shift and change how we might teach something? Because it isn't a one size fits all.
Right. Speaking of one of those practices, you just talked about it. There is so much power in a think aloud. I think sometimes I feel like that was one of the first things that I really remember, first strategies I remember learning about in my teacher ed program. But I think sometimes we forget about how powerful that can be, not just with our academic skills that we're teaching, but like what you said, when we make a mistake. Or when something doesn't go how we planned, or when we're having a big feeling or something like that is really powerful because kids, they've only been on this earth for a little bit of time. A good friend told me that. So they don't always know. They don't know what to do. Sometimes we expect things of them, but they haven't been here as long as we have. They don't know what to do. So we have to model for them, not just the academics, but the emotional stuff too, the humanity. There was something that happened organically one time when I taught at a previous school. I made a mistake when I was working through, and I just turned around and I said, man, I'm feeling very human today. And the kids kind of looked at me funny, and I was like, humans we make mistakes. Everybody, grownups, kids, everything. And I said, I feel like I've made a few different mistakes here today, and I'm just feeling very human. So for the rest of the year, every time I made a mistake, they're like, oh, Miss Gibbons, you're so human. I was like, I know, right? And then they started doing it. When they would make a mistake, they would be like, oh, I'm human. And they'd erase it. I actually had a mom reach out to me on social media the other day. Her child is now in middle school. And she's like, that changed her. And that I was like, oh my gosh, of all the things that I expected to maybe pass along for them to carry with them, like that little insertion in that one day, that I said on a whim, that's what she carried with her. And what an important thing to have. Yeah. To forgive yourself and to be compassionate to yourself for not being perfect and for making a mistake. We all need more of that.
And that's not on the page number.
Exactly.
Like that is what part of the art of teaching is. It's bringing those things in so these kids get to see that. I had a very similar situation with this process that we go through when we're having big feelings, whether you're really excited or happy, or whether you're sad or bummed, or there's a whole range of emotions, but we go through this process. And I sent it home to parents in case students talked about it. They knew what we were doing and learning about. And I had a parent at conferences tell me that her son hung it on the fridge. And when she had a big emotion, maybe mom was upset about something, he reminded her that she could do this process too to help her out.
I love that. We didn't get that in school.
Like, I love this. And she was so good about it. She's like, it did help me stop and think, like, okay, how can I best help him in this situation or myself in this situation? Because I'm really upset right now. Right. So I thought, well, good. And I need to remember this at home. I'm not good about it. I can do it in my classroom, but remembering it at home, I have to remember that too. So I love that for teachers, we understand this. We see this every day. And I like this conversation because I really want the people above the teachers to see, whether it's administration, a district, the state, federal, whatever in that capacity, families, to see that teachers really, like, we're not just teaching, yes, we're teaching scientific research-based things. Yeah. And if we're not, we're hopefully finding out what science is there to best support our students, but we're bringing a flair to it to support this human being, this living little thing with feelings and emotions and struggles, but also with a lot of great strengths. And what can they bring to this? What can they add? Like, they're human and they have a lot to offer our instruction. And we get to, like, in that article, Shanahan compared it to doctors. Doctors, they have to rely heavily on science, but there's also something called a bedside manner. Exactly. Like, they're not just, yes, they have a science. Yes, they have to follow a lot of guidelines. But they're also empathetic to a patient, or mostly. If they're not, they go to a different one. So, which, funny in teaching. Maybe that should be the same motto. We find a different one if we don't have, like, I don't want a wishy-washy teacher. I am not a wishy-washy teacher. I am what some might term a warm demander. I have high expectations. I am known as being very stern, but loving and caring and fun and engaging. And so I can take that word stern with all those other things. That's the goal. I'm trying to teach the whole student and have fun. But with doctors, that, like, they have all that, but they also have the empathy for their patients. Yeah. They care about their patients. They're listening to their patients. And we want to do the same for our students. I want to listen to them. I want to listen to what they need. I care about them immensely. Like, we're with them all day long for 180 school days. So
I think back to this, just made me think of, like, how Brene Brown always says, clear is kind, right? What am I looking for in a doctor and a physician? I want somebody who's going to sit down and tell me what I need to know and has the knowledge and background to be able to figure it out and to know the details. But I also want somebody who's going to, like you said, have that compassion and empathy while they're having these conversations with me. And I think about, what does clear as kind look like in our profession? And it's kind of like what you just said. You consider yourself a stern teacher or a warm demander. We've talked about this before too, that for me, that equates to love, right? Like, when you are willing to follow through, hold a kid accountable, not let them slide through the cracks, address the behaviors, do what you can with love, that does come from love. And you're doing that, and it might feel strict or stern, and kids will call it that too. They'll be like, she's mean, but it's from a place of love. For me, that's our clear is kind, right? It's clear that I am going to hold you accountable. I am going to make sure that I follow through on this with you and that we figure this out together. Because by not doing that, what message does that send? Right. Unintentionally, obviously, like, I don't think anybody is like, no, I don't care. Like, people are here because they care. But, like, sometimes I think, I don't know. I think that there's a fear of being mean or strict. But for me, like, you can be strict and kind. You can be strict and compassionate and warm. because you're holding kids accountable because you love them.
Yes. Yep. And I think that's where, again, the science would tell us we have to have high expectations and boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
The art is what's bringing in that love and compassion, and why we're holding. It might not feel good all the time to be held to that expectation, but here's why I'm doing it. It's that we have the what, that's that how and why part, like explaining that to kids, having parents. And many parents are very welcoming to the thought of having high expectations and a stern, like, we have routine, we have structure. That's science based. But the art of that then is compassion to that child and their situation, or how they learn. It's like, I always think of that with how they learn, because they don't all come in learning the same way.
What?
We don't all learn the same
Yours
way.
don't?
Yeah. I think that for myself as a student myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a reader, but I teach reading every day.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also I don't tell my students this, but when I process this with adults and I say, well, I'm not really a reader, I am a reader. I'm not a reader of certain things, but I am a reader.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read recipes. I love to read blogs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm passionate about education articles that intrigue me. I mean, but to sit down with a novel and just read is not something I do regularly.
Right. It's not your jam.
Yeah, but right. And so, like, finding the things that I do love. I love a cookbook. Give me a cookbook and I I have to read that.
Right.
I think that I just made a post about, and those again are things I'm going to tie it back to the art of teaching, because there's so much, like, there's a big thing about kids reading certain books. And I just posted about graphic novels. There are a lot of people who are like, they're reading fine. They're reading a graphic novel. They are reading.
They're reading.
It's engaging to them. They like the storyline.
And there's that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that for me, it's like, if we want kids to find reading a joyful experience, we need to allow them to have a joyful experience reading.
Right. And and that may be what is great for them. Now, science didn't teach me this, but then I bring in, oh, I love that you want to read that. Go ahead and read that. Will you then read this for me? And I do say for me. I don't say for them. Read it for me. I want you to try this. I think you'll like this, because I have paid attention to my students and what they like. And I have found something that I think maybe will intrigue them, because I've gotten to know who they are. I have done that work of getting to know my students. And so I feel like I'm in a place with our relationship. I have built a positive relationship with that student, that I can say, try this. You might like this. You might not, but try it. And oftentimes they enjoy it. And then all of a sudden they're branching out.
Right.
That's not in a textbook somewhere. It's not something I read in curriculum. That is something through Tim Rosinski, Shanahan. I just had her name. Oh, I like this researcher's name. I cannot think of her name now, but through these people and my own reading to learn more about, I have learned, like, and they have all put it with the art of teaching. That's that part of when you get to know your students and how they operate, the things that you can help them with in learning. You can help move them from one topic, one area, one thought, to branching out their thinking and developing that side of
I just want to also tie back what you just said with what we were talking about before, in you being a stern or strict teacher, and what that says to kids. Your students trust you. They trust you because they know that you're going to do what's best for them. They know you're not going to let them slide. They know you're not going to steer them in the wrong direction, because you always are on them. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be there. So when you have that kind of a trust too with your students, they know how much you care about them, because you do what you need to do for them every day. Like, they're going to listen to you and go, yeah, I trust her. I'm going to try this. I am going to read this. And
Mhm.
also, can I just add that when we also are talking about like how we're modeling for kids, a couple things outside. I know that we're talking a lot about reading, and that's because when we're talking science of reading and everything, obviously
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yep.
where we're coming from. But in other subject areas too, I think about the conversations that have been had about math over the last, decade, Common Core math and all these things. And
Mhm.
I can't help but think how much I struggled as a student with math, and how it would have been nice for me to learn some different ways to
Right.
solve problems. And
Right.
while a large majority of students might be able to still use methods and strategies that have always been done or whatever, like I think about little Emily in class and how my brain just didn't work that way. You made me think of that when you were talking about reading. And I think how I would have felt more successful had I been provided different opportunities and different strategies.
Right.
Also, at the beginning of the school year, while we're getting to know each other, I think a common question is like, what's your favorite subject, right? Like, what do you like to learn about in school? And this year I said, okay, so we've noticed, I think as a whole, like writing has been a struggle, right? Like kids are not super excited, not all, but a lot of kids are not super excited about writing.
Mhm.
And social studies, I would say, are probably the areas. Social studies, one that I hear teachers go, it's so boring, So when we introduced and I started, I said, my favorite subjects are, I have two. Writing. I love writing. I love coming up with interesting ideas. And I love, thinking of how that's going to sound. And I love then taking it out of my brain and putting it down. And then then I can fix it up and stuff and make it, however later, but like getting those cool ideas out. And it's like, I get to be the author and make
Mhm.
a huge deal about it. And then social studies. I also really like social studies because I like learning about how people are in the world and how people have moved and how, there's different landforms and like our world is so unique and amazing. And I just really like learning about that and history and everything. And wouldn't you know it, about 2/3 of my class, their favorite subjects were writing and social studies also. They love it.
Yeah, love it.
I've had more success with writing so far at the beginning of this year than I think I've ever had.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
like,
powerful.
not in a textbook.
Right. Right. That's
I mean,
powerful.
I was shocked. And they're like, I also love writing. It's my favorite. You just don't hear that a lot.
Right.
Usually there might be one or two kids that are like, I love writing.
Yeah.
There's like half my class, over half my class was like, it's my favorite.
Ooh, I'm going to try this.
Yeah. It's
I'm
really,
going to take this and try this.
it's theta. It's theater.
Yeah. Yep.
I actually really do like writing. I did like writing as a child too. I
Yeah.
really do enjoy writing. So that wasn't as much of a stretch for me, but I did it with the intention of making it sound really appealing.
Yeah.
Like to be able to come up with your own ideas and share them with the world. And like,
Right.
that sounded appetizing to kids. And social
Right.
studies too. We're just one little speck on this huge planet. There's so much to learn,
Yeah.
about people and places.
I do that with science and math. I've not thought to do it. And I never did it with intentionality like what I just thinking back, I know that I do that because we have a new math curriculum and I really like it because we are talking about math. We're not just doing math. We linger on a problem for a while because we're learning different strategies and we're talking about it. We're going back to those CGI days where you're going to
Yeah.
tell me your thinking. How did you? And we're really digging into that, challenging for kids. But and actually, I will say this, it's more challenging for the teacher because we didn't learn this way. So if you're not excited about it, there are teachers who are struggling, and that's okay. And they can be transparent about that. I'm helping a colleague through that. And like we're trying to help her through that now because it is a different way of thinking. And it is frustrating when you're a teacher and you're like, but this isn't how I learned it. But to think how far we've come with those strategies in math and how we get to help our students do that. Like I do what you're saying, like, I love math. I'm so excited to talk about math. I can't wait to talk about math. And they're excited to talk about math.
Right.
And engage in that.
Is it okay for us to say, you guys are so lucky? You are so lucky. We didn't get to learn these strategies. Yeah. I didn't get to learn how to do math this way.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, I'm learning so much with you. And legit. Like you really are, you know,
Yeah.
but like, we don't have to be the knower and the keeper of all the information.
Right.
I think there's a lot of power in looking at kids and saying, wow, you get to learn in so many different ways than I did. This is
Yep.
pretty amazing.
And you're going to get to show us your learning.
Right.
We're going to learn from you. I'm going to learn from you. Your friends are going to learn from you. Like, that's powerful. In science, I think about that. Science is my most favorite subject to teach. I love science, and I want kids to be excited about science. And one of the things that I have done for a long time was because one of my best friends did this, an observation notebook where we just go outside and we observe nature. They have a notebook. We stop what we're doing for that part of the day, and we go outside and we write about what we see. We draw pictures, we label, we write about it.
I stole that idea from you.
I was talking to my students about it. And I'm like, this observation notebook, where else could we use this? And one of my students was so, can we take it on our field trip?
Ooh.
Because we just went to a big park in the town I live in. And it's a park that many of our students in our district go to. They provide a lot of resources that support our science standards. And so we'll go a couple times. They will come to us too. And we just did this yesterday. We got to walk, and it was plant parts and pollination. Well, my goodness, they had things they want to put in their notebook. Like, we got back to school, and I actually did not bring the notebook because I couldn't figure out how am I going to manage this notebook, these pencils. I'm going to work on that because she was excited. She wanted to take her observation notebook with her so she could jot things down. And I know that for the next one we do, if I talk to the conservationist, we will work that into the program. Like, these people will work with us so that our kids we have this gigantic tree outside the window, and we get to watch it change from this beautiful green full tree, watch it go through fall and change color, the leaf colors, and watch the leaves fall. And there are days we watch them just blow and they blow off. And then it's bare. And then we watch in the spring as it buds. And so much, that's not in my curriculum. But the standards, number one, the standards we cover, a multitude of standards that we cover by observing that tree, taking notes about that tree, writing questions we have about that tree, thinking about what might happen, what colors might. Those are things and I'm excited. I'm bringing the excitement with them. Yeah. They're excited to watch this tree. Every day they come in, ooh, there's another yellow leaf.
Right. And it's right outside their window. Yeah. They can access science and learning anywhere they are. Yep. You know, you don't have to go anywhere else. That's so great. And I love that they wanted to take their notebooks. There's so much ownership there. They own their learning. You know, it's theirs. That is so cool. I think there's a lot to be said when we can let go of some control and give it to our students. Yeah.
And I was going to something that I think I wanted to point out because I know I was telling you earlier, these conversations, I really like that they just kind of go where they go. I like that. And the topic is still back to the science and the art. Yeah. And you and I are very passionate about the art of teaching. I know that of you because I know you personally. I know how you teach. You're funny. When you said earlier, you want to go into improv, there are things little memes that'll pop up. And I know I've sent them to you from Facebook. I'm I'm not sure why I thought of you, Emily, but the squirrel dancing, whew, let me show you.
Glad I can be with you a little bit every time you see me.
Oh man. Awesome. So, because I just think, and I get that not all teachers are like that. And I want people to understand that when we say art, we're not saying you have to be this loud, big production. It's really I always think of, it's the feeling you're bringing into what you're teaching. And sometimes there are parts of I'm not loud. I'm not this big presence. We sit calmly. And I'm I'm really excited to share something with you. You're captivating them by being calmer and quiet. Because I don't want teachers to think or this, for, I don't know a better term, but this dog and pony show. It's not this all the time. I don't have
I would
I
not have
think-
the energy for that to sustain that.
Right,
I would
right.
just burst. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of one of the memes I think about that just cracks me up is the high school teacher versus the elementary school teacher, and the high school teacher in their business attire and the elementary school in an Elton John costume.
Yeah, it's like feathers and
Yeah.
and they're just very serious faced.
Right.
Right.
And I just think like there is a difference to certainly how
Yeah.
a lower elementary versus a high school teacher perform in their classroom.
Right.
You got to look at your demographics. I think my daughter would be like, if her teacher came into a 10th grade classroom, like, whoo, I think that would be a little like, whoa.
You know, I've been in a junior high classroom before. No, it is not received the same way. I'll just leave it at that. My feelings were hurt. I was like, okay. And having teenagers at home, I get that. Yeah, I get that. It is received a little differently. But I think that going back to what you said, yeah, you don't have to be like a theater major to be an artful teacher.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's more just being really connected to your humanity. You know, humans are creative creatures. Like you don't have to be big and loud to be creative. You just have to be willing. You have to be a trier. You have to be flexible and just kind of, I don't know, just human. I don't really know how else to say it. Like, I think the whole point is we don't have to be anything, right? Like, you know, our role as an educator, I think sometimes people get worried of appearing unknowledgeable or appearing a certain way, like not knowing makes us, takes away our credibility. Mm-hmm. I think it's the opposite. I feel like we become more credible the more human we are.
Right.
The more willing we are to try new things, fail, and try again. Yep. I think that's what makes us credible human teachers.
Yeah. And opening that to your students. Yeah. Like they need to see that. Right. And I think other teachers need to see that. Like I think that when we show our vulnerability in professional learning, I always say there's an area I'm very confident in my life. I'm very confident about my teaching. Do I have a lot to learn all the time? Yeah. Do I make mistakes? All the time. Do I think I'm a good teacher? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Do I think I try hard and do my best for my students? Yep. Every day. I show up. Yep. But I also think I have a lot to offer them. And I think there's a track record of 22 years that I can show for being the reasons I am confident in my job. But I also come at it as I'm always learning and adjusting that learning and that thinking and processing things. And I show that to the people I work with. So when I lead a professional learning, I don't shy away from the things that I've struggled with. There's no perfection in it. And I do that in the hopes too, that those that are learning from me will be like, oh, I can be vulnerable too. Or, oh, I can make that mistake. I want to try it. I'll make a mistake. Fine. We make mistakes. Show that to your kids. Show that to each other. Fine. We learn from that. And there's so much power in that. And that's not a science. I just think it's us, like you said, being human and real. And that is a big part of our art of teaching. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I thought of that when I thought of this part in that article that I really liked, that the art could be a little bit like, I'm a veteran teacher now. I can say that 22 years. The older colleague believes it deserves education and teaching. It deserves respect for its years of service and the wisdom it has gained from the experience. There's a lot in education that I think gets attacked, and the old ways of teaching get attacked. I think of that when I talk to our director of the JCCL at UNI. When we talk to her, she's like, good things came from balanced literacy. Good things came from certain ways we taught math. Good things came from some ways. Good things came from that. And there's a lot that we can use from those experiences in our teaching. The science, it says, is the brash upstart. It sure it has all the answers and possesses the seemingly limitless energy of youth. The science refreshes your knowledge. Your art is bringing it to life. And I think we need that science. We need people to research. We need to be listening to that and
Mhm.
learning from it, and then bringing what we know as educators into our classroom with it. Like, I don't know. That was kind of a jumbled thought, but I've had it and I've been trying to process it and mull over it. And I really liked what I read there, because I don't want to be discredited because I'm a veteran teacher. I have
Mhm.
learned a lot through my 22 years. I have learned from other colleagues. My aunt is a retired kindergarten teacher, and she watches these videos with a renewed, like she goes, I just wish I was back in the classroom.
Mhm.
This is great. And she taught for a long time out in the Washington, D.C. area. And there were great things then. There are great things now. And it's how teachers present it, I
Yeah.
guess.
It
Engage.
makes me think of probably one of my top 5 least favorite sayings, which is, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, we learn so much all the time. We can hang on to things that work. We can hang on to things that serve our students well and that make sense.
Yeah.
And let go of what's not serving us. Oh,
someone needs let in, but I will in just a second.
Okay. Yeah. So we can let go of what's not serving our students and their learning and hang on to what is. We can make room, but we have to let go of some things too.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think we could go on a long time
Yes.
with this, because it's an important topic, and it's big and it's powerful.
Yes.
And I want that. I would love to talk to you more about that if you would love to. I'd love to have you engage in an educational chat.
I would love that. And here we go. I would love to have a part 2. And I think the question that came up in my mind through our conversation now is, structure is really important, but so is getting messy.
Yep.
I would love to be able to discuss and find some research and things to talk about how to have both simultaneously.
Ooh, yes.
How do we have structure and allow for the mess of learning comfortably in our classrooms?
Yep.
That would be a great conversation I would love to have with you.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited. Let's make that chat happen too. Yep. So, Emily, thank you. I appreciate it. And again, remember, these are, like it's the ramblings of tired teachers. But engaged teachers, fun teachers, teachers ready to learn, teachers who make a mistake. But it is our ramblings, and we hope to hear more from everybody else. Comment, make sure you follow. There'll be more coming. And with that, have a great day, and enjoy. It's sunny out. Enjoy it.
I'm going to go get more coffee.
Right. Yep.
Thanks, Angie.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.